to the level that it deserves, because it's so powerful. Does anyone know or ever been in a situation where they say, it's not my fault? Yeah? Where people say, well, it wasn't my fault. It was the teacher's fault at school to cause me to have that. Or it was the stress at work which caused me to have this disorder of some type. Or it's just not my fault. It's always that person's fault. And to me, they're kind of excuses in some way. Now, I do mean to be a little bit kind of harsh, actually. Because I think that we need to understand that we've got to take responsibility. For where we are right now, in some way, we have chosen to create it. Not consciously, by the way. So I'm not saying that we consciously choose to have stuff in our life, or the people around us to have stuff in their life. But in some part of them, unconsciously, they've chosen to have the issue. They've made a decision to have this. But unfortunately, when people say it's not my fault, it wasn't me. It was that person's fault which caused me to be like this. It was my parents to cause me to feel bad. If they have that, what do? Well, aren't they just kind of pushing out all their abilities to change? They're kind of giving that away. And if we blame other people, that means it's not up to us anymore. We don't have to change it. It kind of gives us that get-out clause if we blame other people. But the more we kind of blame other people or other situations for going wrong, that's when things become a problem. And we literally be in effect. We're living on the effect side of the equation. We're kind of like saying, well, it's not my fault, it was this person's fault. Now I ask us all to think about today of what we can do to change that. Because personally, while I don't necessarily like it all the time, I take responsibility for everything in my life. Because if I take responsibility for it, rather than pushing it outside my awareness, it gives me the ability to change it. If I take responsibility for a limiting behavior I have, I can then have the leverage to make that change. But if I'm blaming someone else or external circumstances, like I'm big-boned or anything like that, it's just genetically, I'm just passed down that way. It's a fantastic get-out clause, isn't it? And it makes us kind of feel okay for a while. But in the long run, it's never going to get us anywhere. If we want to be able to have greater finance, we need to take responsibility for it. We need to take responsibility for our job. We need to take responsibility for how our finances go. If we want a greater relationship, we need to take responsibility for that. I'm not saying necessarily to leave relationships, but to actually take responsibility and make them work. Whatever is right for the person, take responsibility for that. Because if you take responsibility, you own the situation. And then, if we, for example, the effects are the reasons for why we haven't got our life the way we want it. But if we can actually move on the cause side, we actually get our results. We're kind of like owning that situation. We're taking responsibility for it in the most amazing way that we actually get our outcome. And that was one thing that blew my mind, because I always thought, well, it's easier to blame someone else. It's easier to kind of let go of that, and I'll be quite happy just to not have a life the way I want and not kind of be the person I want, because it's not my fault. So we've got to keep asking ourselves, what side are we on? What side of the equation are we on? And like I said, the neurotransmitter bathes every cell of the body. The neural networks are so linked up. I won't go too much into the history of it, but they've done lots of experiments with, unfortunately, with animals and things like that, and they found out that the neurotransmitters are actually in every part of our body. So every part of our body knows what's happening, because we've got all the chemicals there, where the electricity bounces one to the other synaptic nerve. It literally sends the whole information out to the rest of our neurology. So our thoughts create feelings. And those feelings have an effect on our body. Even if we take very simply disease and disorder, what does that really mean? It means a dis-ease of the body in some way. It means a disorder of the body. There's like an unbalance there, which then creates an illness. So when our body is in disorder or at unease or out of balance, we're going to have issues. Sometimes people go through so much stress they get like the flu. Sometimes they go through so much trauma they can create certain, it's fairly controversial, but some form illnesses. But there's lots of scientific studies to back this up. But our mind, the thoughts that we have, the feelings that we have, can have the most amazing effects on our body, the positive and the negative. The great thing is though, if we take responsibility and change our thoughts, our feelings begin to change. When we change our feelings, our behaviors begin to change. And that's what we really want to start heading to today. Actually being able to understand this side of it, so we can begin to be able to make the change we want. So later on in the day, we can then begin to choose to take responsibility here today to make those real amazing changes if you choose to. And that's the real key. The choice to change. The choice. If you want to commit to making a change, that's fantastic. Now, if you don't choose to commit to it, that's fantastic too. We have no problem with that. I mean, it's up to people to do it. We don't change anyone. No therapist changes anyone. It's all about the individual person creating that change within themselves. Yes or yes? Yeah? Excellent.